In this episode of What the Gut, I get to sit and chat with Ellie Kempton, who's the founder of Simply Nourished. We talk about the concept of metabolic mastery and the importance of tuning into your body. Ellie shares her personal journey from an athlete to a functionally trained dietitian and discusses the transformative role of nutrition and lifestyle in understanding your body's signals.
You're listening to the What the Gut podcast, where busy moms can come for a holistic approach to health and vitality. I'm Allison, your host, a holistic health and wellness coach. In this space, we'll dive into the intricacies of achieving holistic wellness while balancing the demands of daily life as a busy mom. What the Gut is your haven for navigating the challenges that come with juggling numerous tasks while aiming for a healthier, more balanced life. Join me as we uncover practical solutions to common health hurdles, from managing fatigue to understanding all things gut health. Through insightful discussions, actionable insights, and tailored lifestyle strategies, my goal here is to empower you to embrace a vibrant, nourishing life while saying goodbye to being overwhelmed and exhausted. So if you're ready to embark on this transformative journey towards holistic well-being, hit that subscribe button. Get ready to discover the secrets to thriving in motherhood while nurturing your overall wellness. A quick reminder, everything discussed here is for educational and empowering purposes only and is not intended for personalized medical advice. Consult your personal healthcare provider for personalized medical advice. Welcome to What the Gut, where we create our own path to holistic health, one episode at a time.
Ellie, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit about what you do, and we'll just have our coffee and jump into a good conversation.
I love it. Perfect start to my day. Well, you named it. I am a dietitian and I'm very functionally trained, but I would say that there's a lot more to the story. And it all began when I was a young athlete. My story and who I am and who I serve began with me not trusting my body and me really pushing my body to a place where I didn't understand even what it needed. And so there was this dysfunction, this disconnect that I know we all can relate to, which is where your body is whispering for long periods of time and then it has to kind of nudge you and then it begins to yell. And so I lived many, many years just not understanding what my body needed, really pushing it hard through high performance athletics. I was a swimmer since I was 4 years old and swam my way into college at University of Virginia. Really high performer. I loved to compete. I, of course, love to win. So what I am to the world now is someone who's exposing the role that nutrition and the role that lifestyle plays in speaking the language of your body again, in creating that connection and that alignment and that just almost that partnership. So, whatever you would describe that's who I am. I love putting women back in partnership with their body. I've been in practice now for 12 years. And I love seeing women just trust their bodies again and really see their bodies as their ally and start to understand what the whisperings mean and understand how to give the body what it needs instead of what I did for years, which is just to tell it to be a little bit more quiet, right? Like almost ask your body to get out of your way so that you can do what you want to do. Your body is always on your team. And when it's telling you different signals, we call them symptoms in medicine, but I'd say they're these beautiful signals of clarity. I love helping women come back to reclaim alignment through tuning in.
Yes, I love that. I think even as somebody who in my own health journey has become more aware of what my body is saying, and listening to it, listening to these signals, it's still like a thing you have to consciously work on. I think that it's such a brilliant tool that women, I don't think everybody knows they need it, but it's so important to be able to tune in for sure.
I think you touched on something so beautiful there that if you're always tuning in, which we may learn to do when we're younger, we may learn later on in life. But as soon as you learn to tune in, I see that as one of the most impactful ways to stay on target with your wellness goals. Often people will ask me, well, is it eating or is it exercise or is it supplements or what is it that's kind of the thing? And I would say the precursor to food making a difference or to workouts making a difference or even supplements making a difference is that you have been tuning in so that you can refine and iterate what you need across the decades. That is the game changer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You've got a membership called The Table. And whenever you work with people in this, you do what is called metabolic mastery. I would love for you to expand on that. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Right. The table is a space where it's selfish because it's a space that I wish I had when I was learning wellness. I'm by training a biochemist, so I'm a total geeky scientist. What I noticed over time in just being in wellness and really in just my own journey as an athlete who got very sick in college is that oftentimes science is given to us without human led grace, human led compassion. This piece where you sit across from someone and you feel seen. You sit across from someone and you feel like your story is acknowledged because everyone who's learning wellness and learning the science of the body has a completely different ecosystem, not only in their body, but in their home and their social lives. So the table is a space where women learn the science. I'm going to teach it and I'm going to teach the intricacies with simplicity. I'm going to break down these complex topics like metabolic mastery, which we can break down today. But we're going to do it in a way that helps humans feel okay about their messiness, helps humans feel okay that they aren't robots who perfectly do habits every day. So, over the course of my career, I've just learned that it's less about the intervention and more about the methodology. How do we do that new habit? How do we actually maybe untangle old habits? So, the table, big picture, is a place where topics get untangled and simplified. We meet every week for some live time together. My colleague Emily and I co teach every week, and we love it because we get to see women come back to life. Now, each quarter of the year, we're long term thinkers. We're probably old souls in this way. We love to think of health as a continuous journey, not a destination. So the table stands across the year, and there's 4 topics. And the first topic, which is near and dear to my heart, is metabolic mastery. The second topic is adrenal health and energy. The third topic is hormone balance in perimenopause and menopause. And then the fourth topic is decoding digestion. So, which I know is your zone of genius. Half who love it, right? It's so fun. And I love helping women see how everything segues to the next. Like you can't, as you know, from your breadth of expertise, you cannot isolate the gut and you can't isolate your metabolic health from your hormonal health. So it's all this beautiful web. And so we lead women into that web and help them make a cozy nest there. So metabolic mastery is probably one of my favorites. So when we decided to have this conversation over coffee, I threw out the idea that we could dissect metabolic mastery and perhaps even touch on how it relates to the gut and kind of that intersection piece because there's so much there. But to me, metabolic mastery is the song of the cell. It's how the cell takes in information, not only from your food, but also from your environmental cues and makes energy out of it. So you can only imagine, I'm actually going to defer to you on this one, what a big role the gut plays in that, right? Like
Yes.
10,000 ways the gut plays a role in taking in information. It is like the information absorbent sponge and making something useful out of it. Think how many times the gut filters and decides not to take in unuseful information. So, metabolic mastery, I would say there's a lot of reductionistic ways to approach metabolic health. Just do this, just do that. But when I describe metabolic mastery, I describe it as though it has 6 different levers. And I show this in visual illustrations. I love making wellness art and medicine art. But one of the levers is gut health. And I specifically say microbiome diversity. One of the levers is cortisol regulation. One of the levers is appropriate detox and elimination. Oftentimes, we get so focused on what we're taking in that we forget about how important it is to release what's no longer useful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another lever is actually just that, is taking in appropriate information. We can't expect the body to make this song if it's not being given an instrument, not being given that information. And then another lever is the exposure to safety. Your body has to feel safe to actually make this song. If we're feeling in threat and if our perceived threat is incredibly high, our body is going to protect us by
Yeah.
slowing this song down a little bit and saying, let's not use all of our all of our resources in a state of distress and
Mhm. Yeah. That's so interesting. I mean, the way that you describe it all and have it all laid out, just for somebody who's not a biochemist or from a medical background at all, just how they can visualize it and see it. I really like that. And I imagine like it's totally different for people in different phases, like in their 20s or 30s or 40s. This looks completely different.
exactly. And that's the thing. I love how we started this conversation off with just this idea that things change across the decades, especially for women. I just feel like there's an opportunity here for women to be receptive to a new way to eat, a new way to work out as we age. And it's not that things get harder, though I know the wellness industry makes it seem like it's a process of just constriction and restriction to age. But instead, it's an iteration. Just like any software upgrade, you use your apps differently when your phone has gone through a software upgrade.
I like that.
Right? Doesn't that give you so much more compassion? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, I just have to learn a slightly different way. Like when you
Just
log
upgrading. Yeah.
yeah, it truly is an upgrade because as we age, we take with us the wisdom of yesterday to inform the person of tomorrow. And
Mhm.
that is an upgrade. That makes you a much more imperceptive and I'd say agency driven human when you can take those lessons with you. So it truly is an upgrade. The sixth lever is blood sugar regulation.
Mm.
It's one that you don't feel. Like all the other ones we talked about, the gut, you feel that. Your levels of calm and nervous system regulation, you feel that. You often feel drainage and detox because, you see it on your skin or you feel symptoms like cognitive fog and blurred cognition. You feel that. But that blood sugar one is important, especially I'd say in your 40s and 50s. So starting in your 20s, I think metabolic mastery starts with getting a little bit of information. I mean, when you were in your 20s, did you run labs on yourself? You might have. I did.
Not when I was in my 20s.
Oh, me either. I was so,
Even despite some of my wellness challenges.
I didn't really get the point. Like,
Right. But once I hit the 30s, everything changed.
exactly, exactly. So I'd say get the information in your 20s and 30s. I don't work with a lot of 20-year-olds because there can be quick fixes that work in your 20s. The body's resilient. And so it will adapt to missing nutrients and, missing resources better, younger. But I would encourage anyone listening who's in their 20s to start running labs, not to just get information, but run labs with someone you trust. Run labs to understand patterns that you don't yet feel. So I'd say just basic blood work
Yeah.
and run your hormones because we technically go into perimenopause around age 35.
Yeah.
So knowing your baseline is going to make the journey into perimenopause and then fully, then to the completion into menopause when you no longer have a cycle So much easier. So many women come to me and say, I have no idea if I'm in perimenopause. I don't even know what that means. And
Right.
running labs helps me understand for them not only where they are in perimenopause, but I describe to them the impact that that's having on their metabolic health, because our sex hormones play a big role on our metabolic health, and also just empowers them to know what to do. Like I'm getting my PhD right now in what's called applied psychophysiology. And my research topic is the role that agency plays in habit sustainment. And I will tell you what, the more I research agency and self efficacy, it's game changing. When you
Yeah.
believe you can do something, girlfriend, game on.
Yeah, I believe that, and I think that kinda just ties into what you were saying in the beginning as far as, like, being more in tune with yourself and with your body, like, knowing what you're capable of or if you can do it, telling yourself that, you know? So with your metabolic mastery, there are, like, ABCs of sustaining this. What are those?
Yeah, the big one, I'd say it's so cool. We're circling in on the prize here. A is awareness. I would say when you are aware, just like running labs in your 20s and 30s, or I'd say in your 40s and 50s, becoming aware of your alcohol consumption, becoming aware of your protein intake, becoming aware of just even how things make you feel. That's game changing. And I think that there's a little bit of I would almost say an addiction to finding optimization before you find the trailhead. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah, I think people are quick to want to fix it, and so jumping on something that's like a fad or a quick answer, yeah, for sure.
It's like we hear optimization, 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 and yet sometimes people don't know where to start. And
Mhm.
so there's a big discrepancy between what's plausible and, or what you're capable of and where you need to start. And so I have these incredible clients who sit across from me and they're pressuring themselves to go ice plunge and then go cryo and then red light and then, only eat sprouted seeds and things like that. I'm like, well, let's start with, are you eating protein? And they'll
Yeah.
be like, I don't know. Let's start there. And I love that. I light up when I get to help someone start with that awareness piece that when you build a new habit, you have to be aware of your ecosystem. You have to be aware of what's going to make you successful. You have to be aware of the things that are going to make you unsuccessful. I'm a big fan of failure because when you fail, you have information for the next day.
Yeah.
I do not fear failure. Failure is incredible information and it informs what you tried to do that was too hard to sustain. And I am here for the sustainment. I care way less about the intervention. I care what you're doing when you're a fit, fabulous 80-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? So I love the awareness piece. That is huge. And then the B is the behavior itself. I think a lot of times, so once you've identified, we become more aware of what's going to trip you up and what's going to make you successful. You want to take that behavior and you want to basically make it the smallest version of that that behavior. You want to basically do the 1% version. So, as one of my favorite authors says, if you Dr. Fogg from BJ Fogg from Tiny Habits, he says if you want to floss your teeth, floss one tooth and every other tooth is cherry on top. But flossing teeth, you just need a trailhead. You need something that's going to be successful, that's almost laughable. I always do the giggle test with my clients. And if I tell them the version of their habit that makes them kind of giggle, they're like, yeah, okay. I'm like, oh, good. Then it's going to work. So we do the giggle test. And truly, this works with kids specifically. When you give them a behavior that is bite sized, their success in that behavior catalyzes success in so many other facets of their life because they believe they can. Well, it's a bite-sized behavior.
Yeah. I like that, and it's so much more about the process and not just the end result, which is just kind of my thing. I'm always about process, process. So, yeah. So, what is the C?
The C is the best part. And the C is a human longing, it's a human desire, and it's a human right. And it's to celebrate success. Yeah. I don't think we encode wins into our system. So if the behavior is bite-sized and you do it, we just sometimes blow past that and go the next thing, right? I know
Right.
I'm guilty of that every day. And when you encode a win into your system and you actually celebrate, and it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to set up a petting zoo or to take parade. You don't have to do anything extravagant. It can be super simple. You can close your eyes. You can put your hand on your chest and just say, I am a total rock star.
Yeah.
When you do that, I mean, I just got goosebumps doing it right there, knowing that we're rock stars for having
Yeah.
that.
Because you believe it. Because you believe
Right.
it. Yeah.
And your body is listening to every thought you have. And so when I just said that to my body, all of a sudden, we're on a team again. And
Mm.
it fully trusts that I've got its back. And so that celebration piece, I think, is the piece that's missing 90% of the time. We as adults think it might be silly or unnecessary. But when you start celebrating life, you start to see that it's the magic sauce. It's the
Yeah.
thing that breeds joy. It's the thing that breeds life. And it's the thing that I'd say at a community level, it brings other people into the celebration and helps them celebrate themselves. So, one of the first things we do at the table, no matter what the topic, no matter what the day, no matter how I'm feeling, how they're feeling, we get on the call and we brag to each other. We just let it rip. We
Yeah.
brag, 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 brag. Because when we brag to each other, we're practicing creating that ecosystem of celebration. Who couldn't use more of an ecosystem of celebration?
Yeah. I love that. I do. I really do try to focus on that with my clients too. When we meet, we talk once a week, and I always ask what their wins are. And even like with my kids at the dinner table, we say, "Okay, what are 3 good things that happened with you today?" And since we've started incorporating that, I can just see for myself how hearing other people's wins is empowering for me to hear for them, right? So just creating that community it's awesome.
I'm curious, when you are asking your clients about your wins and when you're at the dinner table with your kids, which I love that you've created that ecosystem that's becoming a lost art. But I'm curious what you feel like what impact. So when they're talking about their wins, what would you say that the biggest shift you feel is? Because I know that I have to be honest, when I ask somebody about their wins, there's some pushback in the beginning. Like, it's almost like they're shy about it until it becomes something that they expect, but it's interesting to me. I'm curious if you felt this in sessions or with your kids. Maybe not with your kids, because kids are so unfiltered and can be just receptive to this kind of thing. But I it takes bravery for me to enforce this because there is this cultural a little bit of a hush hush around things that I think you're awesome at. Do you get that?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I know whenever I first start working with clients, even if it's like that first week, I'm always like, well, what's a win? Like, what, even if it's before we started working together, since we started working together, whatever. And sometimes they're like, oh, well, just signing up to work with you, okay, that's great. Most of the time, that's the first thing they can think of. Or I'm saying, like, oh, but, I'm doing well right here. But I do also ask them their challenges too. And it's always like, well, I'm not where I want to be yet. And okay, process, right? Like it's not about the end result yet. I understand that we're going to get there, but we've got to enjoy the process and embrace the process. But after doing it a few weeks consistently, you start to see them just the wins with the little things. And so much of it is mindset and like being self aware. It's not even so much about like their gut specifically. However, that's what we work on, but it's a holistic approach. And so just little things like, oh, I've been able to be more consistent with myself and the promises I make to myself, or just being more self-aware about what I eat, right? Or what I'm not eating. Little things like that. It's really mindset that you start to see first, which is like you said, the awareness part, like that's the important thing that comes first. I mean, that's how it's going to be sustainable in the long run. But yeah, I do think that it's there's such like this misconception in our culture that like we can't talk highly about ourselves. Like we can't brag about ourselves because that's selfish. So I definitely get that vibe too, though.
To me, it's a vote of generosity when you're willing to share your gifts and be proud of how you share them. That is, we're designed to share our gifts and to invite people into that act of generosity. So when I phrase it like that, I think my table members, I call them my table goddesses, I think they're a little bit less shy about it. But I'm relieved to know that you also feel that pushback. It's definitely a point of just some rewiring around what celebration means and how to look for even the tiniest things to celebrate. I loved what you said when you start to see your clients go from the big kind of, oh, duh, of course you're celebrating that, to, oh, wow, that was a tiny thing. I'm so glad you're celebrating that, because what you focus on expands. There's this really cool portion of the brain called the reticular activation system. And it's like the brain's Google search bar.
Yeah.
Essentially, you know this when you go to, well, search in Google. If you search the same thing twice, you don't even have to type in the full search term. It just fills it in for you. Similarly, the brain does the same thing. It's keeping things kind of quickly available to you that you're searching for all the time. So if you're searching for wins, if you're searching for celebrations, if you're searching for the best possible outcome, if you're searching for things to fall together, not fall apart, that's what you're Googling in your brain, and that's what you're finding. Because we can't focus on everything. We can't focus on all the wins and all the losses. So we kind of have to pick one. And instinctually, we're going to look at the losses. Instinctually, we're going to look at what goes wrong. So when left to default, we're not going to find the things that went right and not going to find the things that we celebrate. So I just love seeing humans use this facet of their brain. It's almost like driving a manual car, a stick shift car again, and being like, oh, there's fifth gear.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're
That's
stuck
fun.
in first and second. That's horrible.
That's a good analogy. I'm curious though, Ellie, like you mentioned that you created the table because this is something that like you wish that you would have had and just how you grew up feeling disconnected with your body. What led you to where you are now?
Yeah. Crohn's. Yeah, I would say I did have a pretty abrupt sliding door moment in my life where, I had spent so long pushing my body, as I preluded. And it was, I vividly remember it was 2 weeks before Olympic trials, and I was diagnosed with Crohn. And that was my turning point. I know everyone has their hero's journey with that big, pivotal, punctuated moment. This was mine, where I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision whether or not to go the traditional route, treat it the traditional way. And being the biochemist, we'll say fledgling biochemist, I just asked a lot of hard questions and probably challenging questions of like, will I be on these medications for life?
Yeah.
What impact does some of this treatment have on my mind and my brain? These things that I think I just had the gumption to ask because, like you, I'm very courageous and I'm very outspoken. And I'm glad that I flexed that. And I decided to be a bit of a rebel and create a different path for myself that was unforged at the time, and just really search for something that felt aligned. So it felt like pushing through the weeds and being like, I hope I know where I am. But I did find functional medicine, which is now very popular. And functional medicine just really resonated because it really, I was asked questions that made sense. I was asked questions like, what do you eat? And I was asked questions like, how do you sleep? And how do you navigate stress and things like that? And so that was, because that was my big turning point, it really set my compass. I went straight from Virginia out to Seattle, and that's where I got my master's degree in functional nutrition. And that's where I also became a dietitian. at this school for natural medicine that's amazing. I like to relate it to like Harry Potter, Hogwarts situation because it's just 100% natural medicine. It trains naturopathic doctors, and I got their master's degree there. And what I learned was what we talked about in the beginning, and I think it's the epitome of medicine, which is taking cutting edge science and pairing it with this piece that almost allows it to be accessible to a human. Because I think if we get too carried away on something having a white paper behind it, or if we get too carried away in the details, we lose its approachability and we lose some of its magic. So that's what I learned at Bastyr. It was a beautiful place. So I look back on that very fondly now. I think everyone has their professor that tends to be rooted in pain. And that was my professor. And it's amazing. My gut is very, very humbling to me. I know that my gut will be the first thing in my body to tell me something is off. I really appreciate it for that. I think I spent a long time, as I know we all do, resenting or suppressing what our professor is. And now I see my gut and I as besties. It's like, it's always going to tell me what's up in its myriad of ways. And it's going to keep me honest. And it's going to keep me in a space where I, I'm living up to my highest potential.
Yeah, I love that, and it makes me think of the saying, it's like, "Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer," and it's like, because I felt that way too. You feel like your body's betraying you at some point, but it's like you just have to get to know it, get a little closer to it, befriend it, and it doesn't have to be your enemy anymore, you know?
Well, I know you learn that it's actually maybe your best friend. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's such a wellness is, I think, the ultimate human journey. Maybe now, maybe it didn't used to be when things were just maybe when food and lifestyle catered to wellness, but I wholeheartedly believe that we're now in a space where the human journey is the exploration and the investigation of wellness. And it's to your point, it is truly a journey. It's something where you never really get to an end point, but you know you're there when joy is on the way to joy, and you aren't just holding on for dear life to experience relief and holding on for dear life to lose the weight. I know my clients are thriving when they are content at their current weight because they're eating well, they're living well, and they're so joyful on the way to the next weight loss milestone that they may have. And before they know it, they've taken their attention and energy away from the weight and back onto themselves as a human. And that's the ultimate trick.
Yeah. Yeah. I did have one other question, Ellie. So, the you were talking earlier about the agency and wellness, and I'm wondering, like, what is the number one secret in reclaiming agency and wellness through the life cycles?
The number one secret, and I almost feel like I want to reclaim years of my practice when I didn't understand that this played such a big role. But you not only have to believe you can do something, which we talked about, agency, self efficacy, but you have to claim it as part of who you are. So if you want to lose weight, you have to literally believe you are capable. I am someone who is capable of losing weight. And when you put it into this space where you claim a goal or an aspiration as part of your identity, you now have so much more engine power behind you because now you are going to prove to yourself and the world that you are right. It is a human longing to be right. So when you basically take any goal or any habit and weave it into the tapestry of who you are, you're unstoppable. And so I challenge anyone who's listening to look at their goals and look at their aspirations and notice if the way you're talking about it is outside of you. I want to be healthy. I want to lose weight. Well, you're not going to try to prove yourself right on that. If anything, you might actually try to prove yourself wrong. Like, oh, yeah, dang it, I messed up again. So I'd say one of the most approachable ways to describe this is if you happen to be someone who says, I'm always late, notice how much you are always late. Because you are going to prove to yourself, unfortunately and subconsciously, that you're right. So you're like, see, I'm always late. But that's an I am statement. Flip it on itself and notice how many subconscious things you do and how many more times you show up on time when you say, I am on time, or I'm becoming someone who shows up on time. It's night and day. So take something like that and just play with it. I'd love for everyone to challenge me on this one. But when you identify with something, you click into a place of motivation that doesn't take quite so much willpower because you're claiming it as yours. So when you look at the power of habit formation, goals are kind of powerful, but they tend to be given to you from someone else. So they're flimsy in the sense that, if you learned a goal or if you had a goal that you was formed by things you saw on Instagram, or maybe you're working with someone and they helped you build goals, great, but it might not have long-standing sticking power. If you have process-driven habits, those are even stronger because it's no longer just a goal. There's processes in place to make that goal come to fruition. But identity-driven goals are what I have found in practice to be the game-changing technique. Your habits are no longer what you do, they're who you are.
Yeah, I like that too because goals always have that connotation to it where it's like an end result, like something that you'll get to eventually. Whereas taking what you're saying, it's like a mantra, turning it into a mantra, it's the process of it. So I have clients right now who are like, I'm just not getting anywhere. I'm not feeling good yet, but they've only been doing this for a very short period of time. And I tell them, it's a process. You didn't get here overnight. You've been feeling like this for years. Um, Hopefully it doesn't take years to get to where you want to be, but, you know, you are healing. You are doing this, and reminding them of that, I start seeing their wins become appreciative of the little things, their mindset changing. And so just embracing the process, becoming more self-aware, everything we were talking about.
Well, and you just nailed it. You heard your client say, whether you consciously tagged it or not, you heard your client say, I'm not getting anywhere. Do you hear the beginning of that sentence? I am. They literally relate with that being who they are.
Mhm.
And that is debilitating to progress because, again, humans' longing is to be right. So even if it's a defeating identity statement, they are going to look for proof that to bring to you and to themselves that they aren't getting anywhere, and they will find it. Because especially if an identity statement is slightly more fear driven or threatening, again, remember, we're biologically hardwired to look for those things.
Yeah.
So we can't, unfortunately, I yet don't know of a way to unwire that facet of our humanity because it's kept us safe evolutionarily, right? But when you caught your client, as you described, and you said, you are making progress, you are in a journey, notice if I would just challenge everyone listening, and then I'm catching myself in session two, just notice if they're willing to take on that new identity and or workshop it. When I'm onboarding someone, we go through 8 spheres of wellness. I grew up in a family of architects, so I feel like everything is it's a blueprint. You know, I'm drafting health here, but the 8 spheres of wellness, every single sphere, energy, digestion, stress, movement, inflammation, hormones, metabolism, all 8 spheres, I I ask them after our first session to workshop their identity around who they are or are becoming. Sometimes it can feel a little bit like you can't associate with it until you say, I am becoming. And that can really strike a chord. So I am becoming pain free. I am becoming a deep sleeper. When you say that, you're looking for habits, techniques, and practices to prove yourself right. And you're going to look for evidence that those things worked because you're becoming a deep sleeper. So it's amazing. I let my clients workshop it. And when they come back with identity statements for each of the 8 spheres, what they come back to me with is earth shattering. It's like they all of a sudden have a newfound belief in themselves that they're becoming that person. And I could not have put those words in their mouth. And all of a sudden, our mentorship, our time together is catapulted forward. Instead of spending months convincing them that they can do this.
Mhm. Yeah. I like that homework assignment, you know, because also just instead of just completely associating with that identity, it's hard for some people, and I get that, but it's like a little baby step, just sticking their toe in the water, saying, "I am becoming," is that's still super helpful.
Absolutely. And, of course, I baby them and handhold because I love to pamper everyone who works with me. So I don't make it just rote homework, but I give them a worksheet that just allows them to kind of draft this process. And I also tune them in, which I know that everyone listening will now be more tuned into this, the times that they accidentally revert back to an old identity of, I'm so bad at eating well, or I am name the discouraging identity. It's so easy, both internally in our thought processes and externally in our social dialogue to build this narrative. But I'll tell you, you can break it overnight just by saying a different narrative. You don't wait for yourself to prove yourself right. That takes time. But sometimes I think we get caught up in this idea of like, if you have a long-standing habit or a long-standing pattern or tendency, it's going to take equally the amount of time to break it. And that is false. You can break a habit overnight if you change your narrative, but the narrative has to be changed. Otherwise, you're going to feel like you're constantly at battle with yourself saying, okay, I want to lose weight, but I am incapable of losing weight.
Right. Yeah.
It's so that feels unwinnable.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious if you ever have clients that, and I'm sure you do, but what you do in the situation when you have clients who have a really hard time changing their narrative like that.
Yes, absolutely. And it starts with having so much compassion for the times you catch yourself, as though I always remind them, imagine a 5-year-old little girl. So you wouldn't, you know, yell at them for it. You just like, oh, remember you, you know, that's not you anymore. So starting with just having that childlike compassion and grace for the times you do notice it. But also, I think the second piece is putting a practice in place that invites you into the new narrative in a really meditative way.
Yeah.
Because you're not just going to accidentally start saying the new narrative. It, like I said, we're hardwired to look for threat and to perhaps gravitate toward or away from things that make us fearful. So it's really important that twice as often we overrule that with practices that embody this new identity. So first thing when you wake up,
Being intentional about it.
yes.
Yeah.
Waking up and just absolutely proclaiming your new identity from the hillsides. If you don't feel comfortable with a megaphone yet, maybe you have a journal and a pen, but having it literally as a running dialogue in your head. And before you know it, this Popeye arm of the old identity is being balanced by this new muscle over here that's being flexed twice as often. And then it's no longer Popeye and T-Rex. It's like, okay, now you notice that this one flexes automatically and you flex your other arm very intentionally. I highly recommend a midday practice of some sort to remember your new identity. And again, it's just as easy as having an alarm go off. Maybe the alarm is labeled new narratives. And all you do is you pause, you take a moment, and you remind yourself of who you are. And then, boom, that reticular activation center system is lit up and you're looking for proof of that new identity. Even if the morning you may have resorted back to the old narrative and accidentally proved yourself right on that old narrative again. It's practice, it's repetition, and the mind is a muscle. It is a muscle. And if you think about a muscle, you've just got to take it to the gym. So I think that you'll find a lot of agency and traction if you consistently have a practice in place that invites you into the new narrative, period.
Yeah. I love that. I'm curious, what practices do you have or did you put in place whenever you were getting into your new narrative?
I love it. Yeah. So this has been the reason I get lit up about this, and I feel fully bubbly when I talk about this is because this is what has changed the script for me. My morning meditation time and evening ritual time is absolutely dedicated to my thought life because those times of the day are times when you're malleable. You're in this state of what's called theta. It's like right when you wake up and right before you go to bed, you can remember things more easily. Have you ever had that feeling where you read a book and it's like the first, before you go to bed, it's the first thing you think about when you wake up? It's because you just absorbed it really well. So I spend usually 30 minutes to an hour, if I can, in quiet meditation and journaling. It is such sacred time. I feel like I bend time. It feels so long and luxurious, even if it is only 30 minutes or some days even more rushed than not. When I have that stillness and I spend about 20 minutes just in a lazy form of meditation where you just sit there and allow yourself to observe your thoughts, that's when I catch the old thought pattern. Like at a soccer stadium, you see the words going around the
Yeah.
perimeter. That's how I imagine a meditation.
Wow.
And I just notice and I cut off and I just, I pivot my thoughts when I notice the words going around the stadium are the old narrative.
Yeah.
Allow my body to metabolize whatever comes up. And you love this. I imagine my body digesting all of it, digesting what happened yesterday, what digesting maybe what happened a few years ago. Sometimes random things come up. That's number one. And then I go to my journal and I just go to town. I write for an entire page of all the things that I'm so grateful that are present, not what I hoped for or what I was grateful for maybe a long time ago. It's like I put myself in this heart space of gratitude that's super duper just raw. It's not like, I guess I used to not relate to a gratitude journal because if it was like, I'm grateful for my dad and my mom and my dog, like every day.
I mean, like your prayers when you're a kid. Thank you for
Yeah.
my daddy dog. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. My journal is a prayer of gratitude. It's just an entire page of what I'm so deeply content with that is. Because as I said, on a human journey, joy is on the way to joy. Heaven is on the way to heaven. And to create that experience, I make an entire page a song of gratitude. And it's amazing how differently I look at the world when I'm already content with what is. I'm not longing for what's next. My favorite author in the world, Martha Beck, she says, we're all in this ocean of uncertainty. The kayak is our dreams and our paddle is our longing. And so as I think about that, I think about my gratitude journal as my life jacket. Now, I'm going to add to her narrative a little bit. And then my another practice at midday is midday is when it gets a little dicey because that's when old narratives pop up and say boo. And you're confronted with things that take you back to your old narrative, grocery stores, plates, all the things that maybe invite you into the old way of doing things.
Yeah.
That is where I have 3 alarms that go off, and they're intentionally placed across my day, but it is my alarms say joy bubble. For me, I need to do something that takes me out of the rigidity. Typically, my old narratives are rigid, and take me out of my rigidity and go play. Like a 5-year-old, I go do something that is so nonsensical. Either that's playing a game on my phone, that's my gosh, I ride my bike to work, so it'll be like riding to some random place and back. Like it's doing something that gets you out of the old pattern physically. And what you're doing when you do a joy bubble is you're proving to your body that you can change the script instantly. And it begins to trust you again that you can be successful doing something that lights up that circuitry of abundance and gratitude instantly. So my joy bubbles are retraining my brain to be like, okay, even if a pattern, I'm knee deep in it, I'm going to town on this email and I'm getting so, lit up by it. Well, my joy bubble goes off and I'm like outside skipping, It gives
Yeah.
you that beautiful dichotomy, and that definitely changes the narrative. And
Yeah.
the evening, same thing. My evening is actually a meditative walk. I walk with my day. And similar to my lazy meditation in the morning, I typically go for about a 20-minute walk, rain or shine. And here in Colorado, that's no joke. So I'm out in the snow. My neighbors are probably like, she's crazy, but
Yeah.
she's out walking at 10 o'clock at night, snow. But my walk is my meditation before I go to bed, not only because it gives me time to digest the day, but it's also a space to remind my body that everything's okay. Even if I did have a day that was wrought with the old narrative and I felt like there were too many failures to count. When I walk, and when anybody walks, I'm not special in this way, you tell your body that it's safe. Especially if you scan the horizon and you tell your brain that there's no lions coming after you, there's no danger. When you walk and scan the horizon outside, you are literally saying to your body, threat is gone. So that is the final punctuation to my day. It gets me away from screens if I'm diligent about not taking my phone with me, which I'm pretty good about. Yeah, I love that. I love that space of reclamation.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for sharing your story, Ellie, and what you do. And this was really informative. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so grateful to be here. So grateful for just this platform and this forum. You're creating an ecosystem of celebration. I feel it. I love just the way you serve and the way you show up for the people who trust you. And when I get the opportunity to speak with colleagues like you, I remember that we're in an ecosystem that's growing. And I love that growth. I love seeing that there are spaces like the one you've provided that are accessible to women and accessible to humans who need you most.
Well, thank you for saying that. Do you have anything else that you want to leave our listeners with today?
No, just a fist pump of empowerment. If anything in this conversation resonated, I would highly recommend doing the simplest version of it. Do not take this podcast and try to implement overnight. Take one thing, be aware of how it impacts your life, take the bite sized version and celebrate that you did it. And I would encourage anyone who's listening to brag to you. I want them to send you a message. I want them to comment. I want them to come to your Instagram, your Facebook, all of that. I want them to brag. And obviously, I'd be giddy if I got some brags too. So I'd
Yeah.
love to empower everyone to celebrate each other after this too.
Thank you for being a part of my journey on What the Gut podcast. For a deeper dive into today's topics, head over to AllisonandWellness.com/whatthegut or find the detailed show notes linked below. Hey, and don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button, and if you love this one, please leave me a review. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Connect with me and stay updated and engaged with my awesome community. Plus, share these valuable insights with your tribe. They deserve to feel as amazing as you do. You can find me at Allison_and_wellness on Instagram. Your support means the world to me. I'm looking forward to our next awesome chat. But until then, stay curious, don't drink too much coffee, keep the vibrant energy flowing, and take care of your gut. Catch you real soon. Oh, and hey, if you're ready to dive deeper into personalized wellness, check out my one-on-one health coaching program at AllisonandWellness.com. Let's make your journey to holistic health truly transformative.